Asia is not the world's largest user of plastic per capita, nor the biggest generator of plastic waste, but it has the highest percentage of mismanaged plastic waste. That means that despite our personal efforts to reduce, reuse and recycle, something bigger is going wrong. At its best, plastic has revolutionized countless industries: construction, technology, transport, making better, safer, more affordable products and components. At its worst, plastic waste takes over 100 years to decompose, and as it does so, leaches microplastics into the environment and ultimately the food chain of which we are at the center. A study published in 2015 ranked Malaysia 8th out of 192 coastal countries for the mismanagement of plastic waste, from land to ocean. China ranked number 1, and for many years was the largest importer of plastic waste, taking in an estimated 45% of global plastic and repurposing it. But in 2017, China implemented an import ban as part of their national salt policy to reduce pollution levels. The global recycling system ground to a halt, with operators from major exporting countries looking for new dumping grounds. They found this in Indonesia, Turkey, India, Vietnam, and Malaysia. In the first 6 months of 2018, approximately 600,000 tons of plastic waste were imported into Malaysia. That's the equivalent of a 2-meter-high stack of compressed plastic waste, 100 meters wide and 6 kilometers long. While these imports were great for the economy, many companies accepting shipments were operating illegally and falsifying declaration forms. Thanks to lax enforcement at Malaysian ports, many imports classified as to be recycled actually contained non-recyclables, which were then dumped, stockpiled or burned. By mid-2018, there was considerable public attention. The government responded by shutting down 150 factories, returning incoming shipments of plastic waste to the country of origin, freezing the importation of non-recyclable plastics, and local companies that were involved in the importation of plastic waste were tracked and blacklisted where appropriate. This international incident caused outrage and prompted immediate solutions. Although most of these solutions had always been possible through the Ministry of Housing and Local Development, or KPKT, KPKT is responsible for approving business and premise licenses for companies that import waste, for the permits to actually import plastic waste, and for enforcing legal standards. But what about our own plastic waste management? A 2007 study of waste disposal behavior in Kuala Lumpur showed that 31.9% of waste was disposed of by open burning, and 6.5% was dumped into the river system. On top of this, despite the declining availability of landfill sites, our rates of recycling were relatively low. Of our municipal solid waste, it's estimated that 40 to 60% are retrievable materials, including food waste, paper, glass, and plastics. This lack of recycling is despite multiple state and federal attempts to encourage it. In fact, separating solid waste at the source, at home, is mandatory. According to KPKT, it's an offence under the Solid Waste and Public Cleansing Management Act 2007 to not separate your recyclables. This law was supposedly enforced in 2015, but just 3 years later, there were accusations that the public and the waste collectors and authorities were not really enforcing it at all. We recycle 1.5 million tons of plastic waste every year, and this contributes 4.5 billion ringgit to the economy. But it could be a lot higher if waste separation was the norm. There are 7 broad categories of plastic that can be recycled, but here in Malaysia, we recycle just 3 types. Type 1, PET, which is used for water bottles and cookie jars. Type 2, HDPE, which is used for milk containers and shampoo bottles, and Type 5 PP, which includes disposable food containers and bottle caps. These are higher value plastics which can be mechanically recycled into small pellets and sold as feedstock to product manufacturers. The other 4 types of plastics aren't recycled here, even though they may carry the recycling logo, as it's not economically viable. So those environmentally friendly refill packs? They're a Type 4 plastic commonly known as flexibles and are not recycled here. Not so environmentally friendly after all. Because recyclables need to be uncontaminated, recyclable but dirty items are often discarded by larger companies as it is not cost-effective for them to process. This is where Malaysia's large informal workforce steps in. One source estimated that around 400,000 people working informally, collecting recyclable waste materials, sorting and cleaning them before selling them on to scrap dealers. They work without receiving a wage, only making money based on the items they collect. Yet, for their eco-socio-economic contributions, the informal workers are not considered in policy formations and are often referred to as scavengers. Waste dealers interviewed by UKM researchers said that red tapes in registering their businesses with local authorities is a major challenge, while others complained of extortion schemes by the officers. Despite the creation of a variety of policies and laws over the years, we still see large quantities of substandard plastics being imported. Domestic waste is still primarily being dealt with via landfills, and plastic is clearly seen in our rivers and oceans. So, what should the focus of national strategy be? Some argue that instead of focusing on increasing the budgets on the recycling industry, Malaysia should direct a greater amount of effort and funds to reduce the individual's plastic consumption levels, not unlike Mestec's roadmap towards zero single-use plastic 2018 to 2030, starting with the outright abolishment of plastic bags in Penang or charging 20 cents per bag on Saturdays in many other states. Others argue that there should be a push for shared responsibility among all parties involved in the lifespan of plastics, from production, consumption, disposal to recovery. This could be government-led, industry-led or voluntary, but would maintain a system of checks and balances within the domestic recycling industry and plastic waste management. The total value of the Malaysian manufactured plastic goods is estimated to be around 31 billion ringgit a year. Whilst it is good to lower our plastic consumption, at the same time, it's important to enforce stronger shared responsibilities in order to create a transparent and environmentally positive industry and ultimately a sustainable circular economy. I'm Patrick Teo for Breaking Down the Issues.